Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review the last episode of Season 1 of Sweet Tooth. Really, I want to thank everybody for really being with this journey for me. If you've watched every single episode leading up to here, or maybe somebody just jumped on at some episode because some episodes are more intriguing than others and people just want to hear how somebody else might have connected to an episode here or there. I am going to continue to try to put out very much interesting content even after this show is done. Like, I'm going to try to keep mixing it up and try to keep people's interest. So if you came on here just wanting to just see Sweet Tooth and see my thoughts and then leave after that, that's perfectly fine. But I also really just want to thank everybody for being a part of this journey and watching every episode. Because a view does matter, a subscription matters, and thank you for being a part of this journey with me. This really interesting show that I really did enjoy. So my thoughts on this episode, we're going to talk about it cryptically and then get into spoilers. If you guys have seen every single one of these reviews, you know how I do. So for this episode was one of those kind of roller coaster ride of things where, like, you had these, like, really nice moments, especially between both Tommy and Gus, and you also had some heartbreaking moments. You have a lot of things to be just kind of concerned about. Hey, what's happening to these people? What's happening to, what's going to happen to this person? Is everyone going to die in this episode? Is that how they're going to finish it off? No. That's kind of like the emotional roller coaster that you're going on with just this episode. Really, there are a lot of times where you're very concerned for certain characters because you've invested for them. But also, like, to me, like, I was immediately like, my heart's made out of stone. Like, I can't, like, Walking Dead style, don't invest in anybody. Come on, like, don't get invested in anyone. Even though, like, it was really hard for me to finally get the backstory that I've wanted for, I don't know how many numerous episodes now, and I finally got it in this episode. And then I got to see something shortly thereafter that I was like, no! No! Because, yeah, like, that's this episode. Like, and plus, it seems like they really tried in this episode to interconnect things, which I was just so happy about. It really felt like this was like an MCU kind of thing in this episode where everything was like interconnecting, stories and stuff were interconnecting, and I was kind of like, man, that is really cool. We finally get to see where the heck Birdie is, because good God, is she been gone for I don't know how long now, and where the heck is this woman? Well, we'll let you know in spoiler version. And, like, God, like, we are to also have me kind of almost thinking kind of like the predictions that I've made are kind of like getting close to actually happening with a lot of these episodes. So I'm like, man, like, a lot of people could have me just say, like, yeah, this movie is pretty predictable. Like, yeah, like this show is kind of lazy, like, with its writing. Like, I knew exactly how this thing was going. Like, I haven't read it in the comic books. I haven't watched any episodes ahead of time. And so really I just came on here and I was like, oh, wouldn't it be nifty if they could do this? Yeah, I use words like nifty. It's stupid, but it's a word that just stands out. So going on in this episode, we have to bring in General Abbott, and he has a big part of this episode. We also have to really show what is going on with Amy and her hybrids. And we also have Aditya to be pushed in here because, like, it seems like his role in this episode is kind of small meat and potatoes compared to everybody else, but still, like, he gets like a decent amount of time, even in other people's other backstory. So, uh, like, I guess we can just kind of be fine with that. But really, the backstory that I've wanted since forever, I don't know how long now, was continuously like, I'm like, dude, I want to know more about that Tommy guy. Like, I want to, like, yeah, you can give me like little snippets here and there of this character, but I want like a whole slice of pie, if you know what I mean. And so in this episode, they are to give us that. They are to have uh, Tommy give us maybe not exactly a full on backstory, but at least it's something that is to have kind of tied us to understand Tommy a little bit more. I think really we are to also assess that that really just the last man or anybody who is to go and kill a person or a hybrid or whatever. I think a lot of people are just assuming that all of the last men were just evil at some point in time. Like, I think really we start to have people, and kind of Tommy kind of sums this up kind of perfectly, how a lot of people were afraid of something new. Like when we as us as people had to go through this whole new normal situation, and how we were really just afraid to even go outside, how we were afraid to basically go anywhere, and how basically like when I would go out anywhere, like I would be having like rubber gloves on, and I would have like pants on, long sleeve shirt, and mask on, and like head to toe like covered, just because really I was like, how is this going to get me? How am I going to die from this? How is this going to happen? Dot 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 dot. Where when the hybrids were to come into the fray uh, of this world, a lot of people were one like already concerned about this new the sick going on, and so they were terrified at that. And again, people were terrified of hybrids because it was new, because it was different. This is not like the iPhone 10 busting out and everybody's like, oh, hey, the new iPhone 10. Oh, that's great. No, like people are just like, yeah, like this whole hybrid situation, is it going to be like, like the invasion of the body snatchers scenario, where all of a sudden we're seeing some kind of different kind of human that all of a sudden is going to be like, ah, and kill all of us? Is that how it's going to be? Because this human doesn't look 100% like the human that I know. And so, really, that's where like hybrids really break down to me. And I think a lot of people could just like say that like the last man saw like this could quite possibly uh, really turn out like a invasion of sorts, and how the last men that at first kind of rushed to conclusions because they didn't know any better. And I kind of summarize this as like when you see a zombie infection invasion, and you naturally assume that somebody's infected without looking at a scar or a bite mark or a nibble of something somewhere, and you just naturally accuse this person of already being infected, even though there's no evidence. And so that's what leads people to just be like, no, like I wanna get away from you. I wanna create distance between you and I because you're assuming or assessing that this person is going to kill you uh, because you are not 100% sure about everything. So with that said, let's. I've already talked about this for 10 minutes. I don't know why, but I just felt like some people might just immediately see certain perspectives about this show, and really, I'm just like trying to kind of break down some other things that people have kind of said or whichever through whatever reason. Um, but in a zombie apocalypse or any kind of apocalypse, people rush to conclusions. People make stupid decisions and regret it later. To the point of like a lot of people make a huge stupid decision and then have to justify it later within this kind of world, or it's going to lead to their death. Uh, Dying is fairly easy in this world, so let's get into diving right into this episode, and let's get into spoilers because yeah, Tommy finally having a backstory, but here are some sad moments also in this in episode. So let's get into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time getting to spoil this show. So before everybody goes, so Amy's tied into this. Aditya, everyone basically who is not the Animal Army, is covered. The Animal Army still is said as a reference, but they're not actually in the show. I'm assuming in season 2 that they're probably going to bring back the Animal Army for a very specific reason. Because really, considering how some people are to be heading into what I would assume is season 2, because they kind of transition us to assuming there's going to be a season 2 out of this. And so hopefully that works out. So let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time you get to spoil this episode. So let's go into the. Well, I can't go into the Ditya stuff. So let's go into. I guess we're gonna have to be forced to go into the. Let's go into the Amy stuff. Let's do that. So. And then I'll go into the Gus stuff, and then we'll get into what is to happen with everyone else, because everyone else is kind of a side thing. And then, like, once we get to the Tommy and Gus stuff, then I'll get to Tommy's story, and I'm trying to figure out how to weed this in. So, Amy. Amy is to be left back at the zoo, and all the hybrids are eventually making their way through this sewer to make it to some church. And so we have these hybrids that are to make it to this church to, sadly enough, still have the last men who grab every single one of these hybrids and take them with them. Because Aditya had mentioned to General Abbott that he needs hybrids, he needs to test them to be able to cure this virus. And so we have General Abbott who's like, well, okay, like, I'll get you whatever you want. And, like, I will, I'll make you happy. Whatever you need, you'll get. So we have Amy who is putting up a last stand against General Abbott, and General Abbott is like bringing all his heavy artillery around this zoo to assume that Amy is not alone, but she is. So we have Amy and General Abbott who are talking back and forth about how about like both of their sides, and how really Amy is telling Abbott that she thinks that he is going to lose this war. That really hybrids are the next stage of evolution, and this general trying to stop that is just like pointless. So we have this general that is telling her, it's like, oh no, like I'm going to collect every one of these things and I'm going to get whatever I want because like this is still like a man's world kind of thing. Blah blah blah, back and forth. But Amy is going on to her speaker and mentioning to General Abbott, it's like, well, like if anything, like I'm gonna make this speaker louder so that way you can hear me because evidently you're not listening to what I'm saying. Um, so we had this kind of like back and forth banter, and I'm kind of very much vaguely like mentioning all the stuff that ends up to be said between these two because there's a lot of dialogue here, and really I just want to rush to other pieces and parts and whichever. But we have Amy who has a plan. She is to put all these wires and to attach this wire onto this jewelry box. And so we have Amy mentioning to General Abbott, it's like, well, hey, like, do you like fireworks? And General Abbott, it's like, well, who doesn't? And so we have Amy mention to Wendy once before that Bobby was putting together some project. And so we have Amy who is to, I guess, light the fuse of that project, which is to all of a sudden outside of this zoo shoot off all these fireworks to hit all of these last men. And so we have eventually a lot of these people who are just kind of wounded but probably not killed. And so they go and eventually just try to make their way uh, into this spot, into this place. And we have Amy who is to be able to sneak out of there but while disguising herself as one of the last men. And she eventually is to sneak out there to make her way to this church to find that every single one of the hybrids are gone. And she is like yelling in agony because like all of her family is basically all taken from her. So we have Gus and Tommy. So Gus is going through the woods, just kind of tearing away everything that was attached to him by his father, or what he thought he knew was his father. Because, of course, if you guys don't remember the last episode, we find out that Gus is not a biological son from Birdie or Richard, which is Pubba. So we have Gus, who is kind of tearing away everything that was something that his father gave him. Gus is tossing away his satchel, tossing away Dog, tossing away this photo, and just kind of walking off to eventually find, bizarrely, this plane that seems to be filled with branches and trees and whatever, and doesn't seem to really exactly work. So, but it seems that the radio does, or eventually Gus fixes it to have this radio work in this plane. So Gus is to sit down, and we have Tommy who is running after Gus. Tommy is grabbing every single thing that Gus was to toss down, and we have Tommy eventually going, and once finding where Gus is, Tommy goes and gives Gus back every single thing that he was to drop. Because Tommy's like, yeah, do not throw away this stuff. Do not throw away Dog. If anything, if you throw that away, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. And so we have we have Tommy now that is to try and give us a backstory of him. And so we have Tommy who is going with his wife to a hospital, and like his wife's water broke. She's being put into a wheelchair. They almost go and have an accident and run over one of these hazmat guys, because like they're in a rush, like their wife is pregnant. So, funny enough, one of the actual hazmat guys, actually, I know him from the movie like Yes Man. Like he was like the bank owner. But I've seen him in a ton of other stuff. But it was really interesting to see him here. So, pushing on. So, because both of these hazmat guys are like thinking that we have one guy who's thinking like, hey man, don't touch your arm on that thing and kind of in smoke a vapor. And this guy's like, shut up. Like, if anything, we've been disinfecting and all kinds of stuff for hours now, and I think everything should be fine. So we have Tommy run this guy down, and so Tommy's rushing into this hospital, and he is desperately trying to get a bed from somebody, because it's like, dude, this baby is going to pop out whether you guys want it or not. So please help us get a bed somewhere. So this nurse takes Tommy to this elevator, and the guys at this elevator are very hesitant about having him come up there, because like, dude, we're out of beds. And Tommy's like, dude, this is an emergency. Like, come on. Like if anything, like, this woman is pregnant and she's going to have this child whether you guys want it or not. And so the military lets him go up into the elevator, and so we have Tommy's wife deliver her baby. And so we have Tommy who's waiting in the waiting room, and eventually we have Tommy who is starting to see people with masks on, and starting to see like people like coughing and all kinds of stuff. We have Tommy who like just had a bandana on over his over his shirt, but then he's starting to realize like, maybe I should put this on my face. Like, maybe I should cover up. Like this, this is kind of getting Tommy just terrified of like any number of any of these people he's starting to realize could be having the sick right now. And Tommy doesn't even realize it. All he thinks about is his wife and his newborn child. So we have a nurse coming to Tommy telling him, hey, yeah, like your wife gave birth to a boy, and so immediately Tommy's like, well, but is it human? That's all his concern is like, well, is it human? There's a reason why he asked that, and there's a reason also where this nurse does not give him an answer. So Tommy is to go up to see his baby, and we are to see that his child is a hybrid. It is it looks like half cow, half human. It could be cow, but it might be like a bull or an ox. I'm not exactly sure. It doesn't look like it has horns, so I'm assuming it looks like a cow to me, or a calf, or whatever. I'm not sure. It didn't look like a cow, so that's what it is. So it didn't look exactly like a cow, so it could have been any number of things. Who cares? Who cares what it is? This is the last episode of this season. Give me a break. So, anyways, we have Tommy who is to see his child as a hybrid, and he is to run out of the room and run into this part of the hospital and just scream on the top of his lungs, and he is just terrified. He is afraid, and because this is new to him, And so we have Tommy who is freaking out, and to the point of him like just wanting to go and almost leave this hospital. And so we have Tommy who's in the elevator ready to go, and we have Aditya who is in this flashback, and we have, I guess, Aditya, easily realizing that this guy is having a kid, and so Aditya's like, oh well, what's your hey, you're having a kid, and Tommy's like, well, yeah, like I'm having one of them, like I'm having a hybrid, and I'm kind of just terrified, and Aditya's like, well, like if anything, just like if you love it no matter what, like you should be fine. And so we have Tommy who's like, yeah, I guess just really just love it no matter what. Like I guess that's a real. So we have Tommy who is kind of hesitant about hitting the button to go back to his wife and his baby. And so we have Tommy who is talking to Gus, mentioning that he did go back to see his child and his wife, and he found out that all of those, both wife and child, were taken from him, and so now he will never see them again. And so we have Gus, who is to mention, like, because he had seen the note mentioning about the preserve, thinking that that could quite possibly be Gus's really last option to eventually find people like him or to find some kind of family. Because Gus does not know where Birdie is, and will eventually talk where she is in this episode. So we have Tommy who is to eventually have Gus tell him, hey, yeah, like if anything, like I think we should be fine, because if anything, I had called the people of the preserve, and I think that they will be able to come and pick us up. So I think we'll be able to go and find like some hybrids, and like we'll be fine. And so we have eventually a big boom going off, and we're kind of understanding what the heck that is. And Gus is like, what is that big boom? And all of a sudden we are to start to see Tommy drop to the ground. And here is when I'm starting to get freaking emotional, because I'm like, mother, you give me a backstory, and then somebody drops to the ground, mother, but man, do they just kind of like leave you in the lurch about something. So we have General Abbott and his men coming to retrieve Gus, grabbing him, tossing him into some little cage in their truck, and we have General Abbott looking over on Tommy's body, grabbing down his shirt to notice the tattooed symbol of the last man. And so General Abbott is looking at Tommy. He's like, huh, he was one of us. What a traitor. So we have Tommy we have Tommy shot. We have Gus, who is covered in blood, going to be catered off to go where Aditya is to be examined, to be experimented on. And so this is getting sad. So we also have Bear, who is talking to Judy, mentioning how her parents had another kid because they had adopted her, but I guess they had another kid afterwards. And so we are to find out that Bear, I think, had a sister, and that was actually Wendy. I'm like, oh my god, they're really trying to connect this whole thing together. And I guess that's why Bear did try to come up with the Animal Army, because Bear had a sister that was Wendy, and so immediately we're like really connecting the dots with this show, and because I think that's the most like important thing that Bear is really to do or say or whatever, because really we have like a lot of this stuff just having Bear talk to Wendy, or Bear talking to Judy about like a bunch of stuff that happened in the past of episodes, but eventually it all leads up to Bear talking about a sister that she had. And so I was like, wow, so like we're really full circling this bad boy to really say that Bear wanted to go and find an army to protect hybrids because she had a sister of her own, which she, I guess, failed to protect or had to send off to Amy to have her protect her because Bear could not protect her herself. So there's a lot of things going on here. So we have Amy. We have Amy, who is. Or no, I kind of covered all the Amy stuff. So we have Gus, who is going off to be examined by Aditya, and so we have Aditya, who is to see that Ronnie is in a separate room, being tied up. Aditya is trying to get her attention through this window, but we have General Abbott, who's telling Aditya, well, like, you cannot, like, she can't hear you, she can't see you, this isn't actually a actual window, like, I think it's kind of like a two-way glass like thing, like an interrogation room kind of thing. And so Aditya can't actually be seen by his own wife. So we have Aditya telling General Abbott, like, you keeping her in that room, you don't need to motivate me to try and cure her. I'm going to try to do that regardless. Like, really, I think the real true thing here is if Ronnie is to actually die, they can hide her even better to have Aditya not know that eventually his wife is going to die. So Aditya could come up with a cure for his wife, not realizing that she is already dead. So really, it just kind of gives Aditya just saying, like, well, come up with this cure because you don't know if your wife is going to die tomorrow or not. So we have Aditya, who is to eventually start getting hybrids and start to test some of them. And the first one he is given is Gus. And so we have Aditya, who is looking at Gus and saying, wow, like, what a magnificent, like, hybrid. Like, this one looks much older than a lot of the other ones. And so we have Aditya mentioning that Ronnie had given Aditya something, and it was a symbol of a deer. Like, it was some kind of, like goddess of a deer or something like that. And so we have Aditya, who is to give Gus a candy bar because Gus spots it. And before Aditya is to see Gus, Gus is saying in his head, do not talk, so that way, like, they won't try to dissect you more. They won't try to get to you more. because you'll be much more important than any of these other ones. So we have Aditya, who is to give Gus this candy bar, and Gus says thanks, and Aditya's like, oh my god, like he spoke to me. And so Aditya is saying, like, you know what, I want to save this one, like, I need more time with this hybrid, give me another one. Because the other one that Aditya is going to get, he is going to have to thoroughly dissect, and he's not going to do that with Gus. He's going to do that with some other lowbrow hybrid that they could just say, like, yeah, like, let's just get this hybrid and just take him and kill him because it won't matter. He won't be an important factor to this story. So we have some lizard hybrid or some, like chameleon slash lizard hybrid that ends up getting sliced and diced by Aditya. And I'm just like, man, that sucks, but Aditya has to do it. They want results. Ba 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 ba. So we have Tommy, who is at this place with this plane, and we have Amy, who is to scoop Tommy up and to get every single thing that Tommy had with him in her truck. And so we have Amy that is to get to her original spot that she was in her origin story, like her office. She is to be in that location with Tommy. Tommy is still alive. Tommy is still alive. He is consistently moving his eyes, and eventually Tommy is to eventually wake up, and Amy had nursed his wound, and Tommy is trying to be at full strength, but Amy's like, rest as much as possible because we are going to get our kids back. And so we have now Amy and Tommy working together, which I'm actually going to assume that in season 2, we're probably going to have Tommy, Amy, Bear, and probably the Animal Army going and trying to go after the hybrids and try to take down General Abbott. And like we're still going to focus on Aditya trying to get this cure, but it's not going to be in a very horrific like way. It's going to be like, hey man, like get this cure for your wife. So like figure out any way to get this cure, but at least he won't have a gun to his head this entire time. So if anything, yeah, like I think I covered most of this episode. I think there might have been a piece here and there, like what had happened to Birdie, and I should now talk about that. So, where was Birdie? Because I didn't cover that stuff. So, we are to find that Birdie is in Alaska. Evidently, she's still trying to find microbes to try and figure out how to cure this whole virus. And we eventually have Birdie, who is to go and realize that there is some like stat phone or something that is going off. And so Birdie is to answer it, and it is Bear trying to get a hold of her, and so she does. And so really that's just the way that this movie or this show just ends, with Birdie being in Alaska. And now we realize that Birdie is still alive. So with that said, I think I'm going to get out of here because this review is fairly long. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.